This is the Be One Change One podcast, where our mission is to help listeners define values, practice integrity, and inspire change.
Our vision is to mentor men and empower them to achieve more by taking responsibility for shaping their own lives.
He's CAS, an evolving man who has been shaped by adversity and continues to grow through his imperfections.
And he's Roscoe, an imperfect work in progress that tries to suck less every day.
Between us, we have over 40 years of Air Force fighter pilot experience with countless hours as trainers, instructors, and mentors.
Join us and learn to take responsibility for your own life as we dive into subjects from leadership to resilience to vulnerability.
Be the one who changes their course. Be decisive, driven, and purposeful. Set the example for others. Lead. We wish we'd had this show when we were younger men.
Be the one. Okay.
That AM DJ from the Midwest.
That's right.
Welcome to the Be One Change One
Welcome.
podcast. Yeah.
That's
Said no one ever.
Right.
Yeah. Oh gosh. First name Friday.
First name Friday.
Yeah. I did not bring stripper dollars, and
to
be honest, I'm really not even in the headspace to be able to concentrate enough. So I'm probably going to fuck up wholesale today.
Right on.
You know what? Here's what I'm going to do. Watch this. The one time that I actually bring notes to a podcast, which is rare, I'm going to just write your first name on here so that maybe I'll remember to not call you the C word.
Yeah. Well played. Well played.
All right. Well, what are we going to do today? First name Friday.
All right, Paul. So today, we've gotten a lot of questions. So a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about today, we've kind of, I think, talked about in bits and pieces, but we're going to kind of tie it all together a little bit. Because you and I had an interesting conversation a little bit ago with a younger man, and we've gotten a lot of questions about this too, not directly, but kind of some directly around this topic, but others in a roundabout way. And that's just kind of how do I deal with procrastination, right? Like if I have an issue with procrastinating, or if I have a hard time getting myself off the couch to go after a goal, or to do something at work, or to get that next certificate of education or something like how do I overcome that? What's the keys kind of to overcoming procrastination? So that's the question that we're going to ask today for First Name Friday.
Well, I think it's pertinent too, because this is something I think that affects everyone at some time or another. It's whether it's, Katie and I have been procrastinating on doing our taxes.
Yeah.
It could be anything, man.
Sure.
Getting a haircut or shaving or whatever, doing laundry. That's one thing that sucks for me is I'm like, it's fucking 9 o'clock on Sunday night. I got nothing to wear to work tomorrow. Shit. All right. Let me go do some laundry.
Yeah.
So guys, this is something that affects everyone, and we can all afford to probably practice a little more self-discipline and get a little better at that. So maybe we'll throw out some tips and tricks on how to beat that old procrastination monster. But first, what the fuck is procrastination?
Yeah. So, I'll come back to something that you just said, because I think it's important, but, procrastination is just like putting it off, man. And it usually stems from like a short-term mood, or just a dislike or a desire not to do whatever the particular thing is that you need to do.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that can be an impediment towards us reaching goals, or getting things done that need to get done. Which is important, because even if it's smaller things like you're talking about, taxes, laundry, things like that, when you procrastinate and let things pile up, when it all comes to a cranium, so to speak, that can prevent you from maybe doing or having the time to do what you thought you were going to have the time to do on something that's actually really important. So
you end up time jacking yourself.
You do. You totally.
The irony of it.
It is, right? You end up just crushing yourself. So, but the important piece of it was what you said, self-discipline.
Yeah.
And I think the important distinction to make there is exactly what self-discipline says. It fucking comes from you.
Yeah. It comes from within.
Yeah.
That's right.
You have to do it yourself. Like, you have to figure out ways to discipline yourself to do shit that's not fun sometimes.
And you know what? So I actually did. I have a half page of notes here, which isn't a lot. And I did a little bit of reading on this today, because this is a topic that I need to work on. This is something that I suffer from, I'd say fairly often. And, I just threw it into Google, what is procrastination, and read through a bunch of different definitions. And probably the simplest one that I found was an inability to motivate oneself. which really is a lack of self-discipline.
Yeah.
And what have we said over and over about motivation? Motivation is external. It's some kind of external movement to get you to go do something or do what you need to be doing at the time. Whereas discipline is more from within.
Yeah.
It's a little more intrinsic. And I think that, over time you can build self-discipline. You can. And there's some tips and tricks and strategies and tactics that you can use, but even that I think can fail you. And one of the biggest reasons I believe that, myself included in this, probably, I'll just use me as an example, is I tend to lack the self-discipline to do things that I'm just totally not interested in.
Yeah.
Or if I'm completely bored out of my mind with it.
Yeah, I think that's true for all of us.
Those are probably the two biggest things. If you said, hey, we're going to go out and do some yard work. All right, cool. Let's go do some yard work. If you said, hey, your laundry is due by 6:00 Monday morning so that you have something to wear, dude, I'm going to put that off until 9:00 Sunday night.
Yeah. Well, I think the other part of it too is, I think a lot of times people procrastinate, especially when it may become, I think people sometimes procrastinate when things feel overwhelming. And that can be a task around the house, maybe something that needs to be done that just seems too big for you or your skills or your capabilities to complete, kind of in a timely fashion. Or it can be around, work stuff or going and finishing your degree in the midst of, being a little older, maybe having a family and working full time, right?
Yeah.
There's all these obstacles that I think that we see sometimes that can feel really overwhelming that also can lend to procrastination. But I think those are more specific to maybe bigger goals, or I don't want to say hurdles or obstacles, but things that we need to accomplish in order for us to continue to move forward.
Well, something I found interesting was, like, this is not a new concept. This is not like some kind of 21st century new fucking woke thing, right?
Right.
I found that there's this thing called akrasia. I think that's how you pronounce it, Akrasia. And it was from, like, the Greek philosophers Aristotle and Socrates. They were talking about this concept they called akrasia, is doing something against your better judgment or not doing something. And this was back a few episodes. I used this example, this definition of discipline from Nick Saban. And it says, hey, there's this thing that you really want to do, but you shouldn't. Could you make yourself not do it? Or there's this thing that you really shouldn't do, but you really want to.
Yeah.
Can you make yourself not do it? So I think it all comes back to exactly what we're talking about. It's just that intrinsic part of you that says, man, I have to get this done. Let me just go ahead and do this. Or I probably shouldn't do this. Let me just put the brakes on.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think too, it may not be even something that's overwhelming. It could just be something that you just really don't want to face.
Yeah.
It could be something that's really difficult. Maybe it's a conversation that you need to have with a really close friend or a family member, but it's really uncomfortable. And
well, you don't want to do it.
You don't want to do it, right? And so that's where you have to have a little courage over comfort sometimes, and just fucking do it. Sometimes.
Maybe it's something you dread, or some kind of fear that you have, or something like that. Like, I've got stories of being scared of heights, and I just had to make myself do it.
Yeah.
The discipline, and this is one thing that helps me, not to get too far ahead, but this is one thing that helps me in those kinds of circumstances where there's something that maybe I'm facing a fear, is I'm a process oriented guy. And the process is step 1, step 2, step 3. Step 1, hike to the waterfall. Step 2, climb the waterfall. Step 3, jump off the waterfall. And I'm disciplined to complete my processes, the fear be damned kind of thing. So fear goes in a bucket over here, and I'm just focused on climb the waterfall, jump off the waterfall kind of thing.
But what you've also done in that process is you set an overarching goal, and you set timelines to it.
That's
right?
why I said I didn't want to get too far
down into chunks. So, and we'll get into that stuff in a little bit. But I think the other key piece though too is, like, guys, we've talked about this a bunch on the podcast. We want to get to a place where all this stuff is internal, right? The motivation is internal, because here's the bottom line. If you're relying on external factors to motivate you to do things, you're going to fail.
You're going to run out eventually.
Or you're going to end up being motivated to do the things that you really don't fucking want to do because you don't know who you are, or you haven't taken the time to define your values. How many kids have we seen, who are playing football, soccer, baseball, basketball because daddy wants them to? And daddy wants to relive high school days or college days or whatever. And it's so important to mom and dad. And the kid has no fucking interest.
Doesn't give a shit.
And he's grinding like crazy to do it because, and what do those guys do? They burn out, or they get pissed or that can also lead to all kinds of bad habits that come along with that, right? So, like we want to get away from being externally motivated to be able to accomplish the things that we need to do, and we want it to come from that place of self-discipline.
Well, in Angela Duckworth's book Grit, she says that the equation for grit is passion plus perseverance, and I think that we can take a lot out of that with that example that you just used with the kid playing football just because dad wants him to. That's not his passion, man.
Yeah, it's not.
And so he's not going to give it 100% effort, and he's always going to not look forward to going and doing that. Now he's going to do it because he wants his dad to be happy.
He wants to make his dad proud.
He wants the accolades that come along with it, but in the end, it's not his passion, man.
Yeah, and that's that external motivation, and it'll eventually fail. So, I looked up a little bit about psychological basis of self-discipline because, I'm a dork, and psychologists believe self-discipline correlates strongly with an individual's executive functioning capabilities, working memory, logical reasoning, emotional regulation, which we'll talk about in emotional intelligence, contribute to self-controlled decision making.
Lots of big words.
Yeah. So basically what that means, dude, is it's at what level can you function? So here's one way that you can start with self-discipline. All those little things around the house that you want to procrastinate, like doing your fucking laundry, Paul, get it fucking done.
Yeah, no shit, right? But I don't want to do it.
That's it, right? You have to have the self-discipline to go set a schedule.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do it on Saturdays because I know Saturday mornings are a good time and there's usually not much going on and mama's still in bed and the house is quiet and I can knock it out real quick while I'm doing other things around that, whatever the case may be, right?
Yeah.
So, but you have to figure out ways, dude, there's so many things in life that you have to do that you don't want to do to get through things.
Yeah.
And some of it's mundane, cleaning the house, doing the dishes, emptying the dishwasher, blah, 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 blah,
doing
blah,
taxes.
Right? If you're a kid in college, get your fucking homework done.
Yeah.
When I was at Naval Postgraduate School getting my master's degree, my finals were usually 30-page research papers, and I had 4 classes a quarter. And we would get research topics at the beginning of the quarter. Some guys would wait until the last 2 weeks of class to start working on all 4 papers. They did not do well.
Yep.
I fucking would go, all right, first, what's the easiest topic? What's the one I know the most on? Okay, boom. I'd get that one done the first 2 weeks. 90% solution. Next 2 weeks was the next one. Next 2 weeks was the third one. The final 2 weeks of class, I'm getting the fourth one written and then I'm polishing the rest.
Yeah.
Right? That's how did I want to do that? Did I want to spend Friday while David was at school sitting at the fucking kitchen table from 8 until 3, doing research and typing papers?
Yeah.
No. But the shit needs to get done.
Yeah. And I think we've all been there, man. I mean, I got a lot of stories. Hell, we were just talking in the pregame about, I've got a talk coming up that I've got to go give it to some ROTC cadets that is coming up here in a little less than 3 weeks. And I'm comfortable with 3 weeks, but if I put that off another week, then I would feel rushed and I would probably, and this is the side effect of what you were just talking about. And what I could potentially run into in this scenario is if you wait until the last minute like that, if you put shit off, something big, something that truly matters like that, like your taxes or your term papers or whatever it is, if you put that off until the last minute, you're not going to give them the best product that you can.
Yeah.
If you work on it early, sit on it for a little bit, go revisit it, sit on it a little bit, and you kind of reattack 2 or 3 times on that. Now you're giving them a really polished product. And man, I ran into that when I was writing the books. No New Lessons and Work Hard, Don't Suck. Those are years-long processes.
Yeah.
I wrote No New Lessons in 2019. It was about an 80% solution. I shelved it for a year, didn't even look at it for a year and brought it back out. And I was like, oh God, this sucks. And rewrote a bunch of it. So it's an iterative process when you do it like that. And if you start early, you get more swings at the bat to make it better.
That's right. That's absolutely. And the problem too with procrastinating on things is you may think you're going to have that time. You may go, well, I can put it off till next week because I'll have Tuesday and Wednesday.
But something else is going to come.
But something's going to pop up, dude. And all that time you think you were going to have, all of a sudden is gone.
It is eaten.
And now you're playing catch up.
Yep. What is it? There's a principle out there, and I can't remember what it is, but it's basically time required equals time allotted or something like that. And it's got some fancy name to it or some shit.
I have no idea.
But we saw this in mission planning, man. Yeah. They give you 4 hours to plan a mission. How long are you going to take?
4 hours.
You're going to take 4 fucking
Oh,
hours. But if they give you 1 hour, you're going to take 1 hour. You know what I'm saying? So if you took that 4-hour block and you planned it in 1 hour and then spent 3 hours on the contingency planning, dude,
you're going to have a really good mission.
You would fucking win hard.
Yep, you're going to win. Yep.
But instead, you fuck off for 4 hours. You go get some popcorn. You come back in, you chit chat, you look at your imagery real quick. And then right before the brief, you go, oh, guys, well, let's just run in this way. And then you fail. And
you get your ass handed to you.
Yeah.
Awesome. So the other thing they said on the psychological basis is that with consistent practice, that it's possible to strengthen the mental muscle of self-discipline over time. And that you can actually increase your executive function by, reading complex things or researching and doing, trying to understand complex issues. That's going to,
I'm fucked.
No, but you're not, because you've been doing that the last couple of years with all the stuff that you've been working on, man. I mean, some of this stuff is more difficult than it appears, and it takes some specific effort, right? And it takes a lot of intellectual thought, and all of that stuff activates those higher executive functions in the brain.
Well, I think really what it's done for me anyways, and I would anticipate this is probably the same for everyone, is you've always known this about yourself. You just didn't have a name for it, or you couldn't put your finger on why I am the way that I am. So when you start studying some of this stuff and you start practicing some of this stuff, you go, oh, dude, that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
This is why I was all fucked up in my 20s or whatever it was. This is why I put off getting my school done for 6 or 7 years or whatever your circumstance is. But when you were talking about the building the habit of self-discipline, well, that goes to what we've talked about before. And you set a goal and you break that down into small bite-sized chunks called milestones or chunking or whatever it is. And you win those small victories. Winning those small victories makes you feel good, and it makes you want to do a little bit more. And if you do that over and over and over again, it's a repetitive process, and you start to like that feeling of winning so much that it just becomes part of who you are.
Yeah, and it comes back to part of the. So there's some healthy habits that we can build around self-discipline that will help us with procrastination, and one of those is goal achievement. That's so all the stuff that you and I have talked about goals, right? Use the SMART acronym, make them specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, set a time to them, break them up into bite-sized chunks. If you need to lose weight, and you just think that, oh, well, I'll just eat healthier and that's going to do it, dude, it's going to fall apart around you, right? Because just going, well, I'm going to eat broccoli instead of potato chips ain't going to cut it, right? But if you start to meal prep on a regular basis, or you start to go down the macro route where you're actually counting your macros and doing all of that kind of stuff, and you track out those things and you get specific about those things, you're going to have success. It's going to be difficult at first. It's going to be hard to maintain, but if you stick with it, if you have the self-discipline, if you force yourself to stick with it, you're going to see results. Well, that's also going to teach you the discipline that you need to move that into something else in your life.
100%. This is fully translatable. And one of the things that I would caution somebody about is don't bite off more than you can chew.
Yeah.
If you're a completely sedentary type person, don't set a goal of running a marathon next month.
Yeah.
All right. Set a goal of maybe making it to the gym 3 times this week, or start small. Like you were talking about with the diet thing. Is that going to completely change your life? Maybe not, but it's a really good start. And maybe it's the one of the pieces that you need for a holistic, healthy lifestyle.
Yep.
And maybe you just start with that. Like, you know what, man, for the next 3 months, I'm just going to focus on my diet. I need to get my nutrition under control. And then after that, maybe I'll start going for walks around the neighborhood. And this kind of stuff it's documented and it's captured in so many really good books out there. Atomic Habits by James Clear. If you haven't read it, it's a little more academic. It's a little more scientific. It's kind of a dry, hard read, but it's super, super good. If you want a little more, I don't know, in layman's terms, kind of laid back version of that, Jen Sincero has a book called Badass Habits. And it's really all the same shit, but she just talks about it in kind of an everyday kind of way. And they talk about the same stuff that we're talking about here. Small things over time give big results.
Yeah. Well, and those small things over time build discipline.
That's right.
And as you start to build discipline in certain facets of your life, you can start to build discipline in other facets of your life. And now it becomes internal instead of external, especially when you start to see the results and the fruition of the effort and the work that you put in. So that's why it's important to set those smaller, realistic goals.
Well, that's the dopamine hit that you get at the end of accomplishing something that you said you were going to accomplish. And maybe you don't get a big dopamine hit when you accomplish your laundry at the end of the week when you said you were going to. But if you set a goal to lose 10 pounds and you lose it, dude, you're going to feel really good about yourself. And maybe that's what you need to propel you to set a bigger goal. Like, man, if I did that in 90 days, what could I do in a year?
Yeah. But you have to build that self-discipline first. Because if we're honest about it, right, if you have a big goal, maybe there's a big overarching goal. A lot of big goals take a couple years sometimes.
Some of them,
to come to fruition, right?
Writing a book.
Yeah, exactly, right. And that's going to take a lot of determined effort over a long period of time for you to accomplish whatever that overarching goal is. And there's going to be a lot of emotional highs and lows in that, right? And if you're tied to those emotional highs and lows and you don't have the self-discipline to kind of ignore that noise and push through anyways, you're going to fall short. The rails are going to come off the track, right? So self-discipline is the only thing in those situations that's going to drive you towards that ultimate fulfillment or that ultimate goal achievement.
One of the things that we haven't really done a deep dive into yet is planning, but in the course of accomplishing a goal that you've set, that is a giant portion of that overall process. You're gonna brainstorm and you're gonna set this goal and you're gonna follow the smart mantra that Jason and Paul told you to. That's so fucking weird.
That's so weird.
But
stop it.
But once you get that goal,
First Name Friday was a bad idea.
Well, whose idea was it?
God damn it.
Yeah. So you go through the process of setting that goal, and that's like step one of a 10-step process.
Yeah.
Now the hard part begins where you have to figure out how you're going to do this. The how is really one of the harder parts of it. Figure out, what are my dietary needs? How many calories do I need to burn today to create a deficit? All these different things and math projects that you have to do. And then there's the posturing of your resources, buying the new shoes, getting the gym membership, getting some AirPods, whatever it may be that you need to do to set yourself up for success. And that's sometimes that could take time. I can tell you when I was planning Work Hard, Don't Suck, that was like 3 months that I did nothing but planning and organizing and trying to get my thoughts together and scribbling in notebooks and stuff like that. Before I even wrote the first words of the book, I was building the plan for how to write the book.
Yeah, that makes total sense, man. You got to start with that planning process. So the only other thing that I would say is, because it's a big old knot and we always talk about this shit anyways, you might as well bring it up again, is it comes back to values, man. So take the time to define your personal values, because if you're Fat CAS and you've got a value and you go through your personal values and discover that one of your overarching values may be health or something like that, that may help give you some motivation
maybe
to become a little more self-disciplined to pursue that goal, so that because it's in alignment with how you're trying to show up in the world and what you believe in, right? So,
by the way, you said the C word.
Oh, so I did. All right, dollar to me. Fucking name myself.
We're doing this like bombing for quarters, like
myself.
Like, does it? Well, that should be a double whammy. You speak of yourself in the third person. Come on, man.
Well, I didn't want to say chubby kids.
So hey, something that I thought was kind of cool and popped up in the kind of the how to overcome, since you were talking about goal setting and chunking and stuff, and I wrote this down: sleep. Being on a really good sleep schedule can help with your cognitive functioning.
Absolutely.
Meditation.
Yep. Meditation's one of them.
Exercise.
Yep.
And that sounds like beating the same old drum around here is balance, man.
Yeah.
You got to have things in balance. And if your three-legged stool is all out of whack, it's going to fall over. So mind, body, soul, start getting that in balance. And dude, here's my knot. It comes all the way back to the shit that we always talk about. And it's having everything in balance is you focusing on you. And when you focus on you and your own personal excellence, that's when you really start to make the gains.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, man. So what are some strategies and techniques that people can use? Did you, in your research, did you see anything?
Yeah. Well, like you said, setting goals, something simple like make to-do lists.
Yeah.
I use a whiteboard to track things and write stuff down.
List person.
Something that I've developed lately, and this is a little weird, but it's helped me with some stuff, because I feel like for about the last, I don't know, maybe 60 days or so. By the way, we're on day 60 of 75 Hard right now. So maybe for about the last 60 days, I feel like I've just been burning at both ends, man. Like every minute of every day is full doing something. I don't have, I think I watch TV for about 3 hours a week, and that's when I put on NASCAR and take a nap on Sunday afternoons. But one of the things that I've developed over the last 60 days to help me remind me of the things I need to do is I have a dry erase board in my man room next to my bathroom. And that's where I track my workouts and you know, the with the color codes and different stuff for the days of the month. So I'll take the dry erase markers and I write on the mirror what I need to get done the next day. So it's no shit like the first thing I see when I walk up to go brush my teeth the next morning. I'm like, oh, well, dude, there's my to-do list, man. So it's just little techniques like that that you can use.
Yeah, I'm a huge list maker. Yep. I always make a list, and then that way I don't, and I always carry paper with me too, so that because sometimes I'll get thoughts in my mind, and if I don't write it down right then, I'll forget it.
I do it on the notepad on my phone.
Yeah, that's a great way to do it too. I have a notes thing on my phone that I do on as well. So
I think every smartphone probably comes with some form of note-taking device. So what you're going to find when you really dig into this stuff, and I know we'll get to this in a little bit about, you know, one of the messages that you tell yourself is, well, I don't have time, or I'll get to it later, whatever. Guess what, man? It's all fucking excuses.
Yeah.
It's excuses. They're not reasons. They're excuses. And you're filling your time with bullshit when you could just get this stuff done.
Yeah. And thank you for that, because it's a perfect segue into the first thing that I had, which was time management, right?
Yes.
You at some point are going to have to audit your time and how your attention is allotted and focused. So if you have a goal that you're trying to achieve, if there's something that's distracting you from whatever the core priorities are that you have, you need to eliminate it. If that's scrolling Instagram for an hour every night, if it's gaming, coming home and gaming instead of working on whatever it is that you need to work on to get your degree finished up, or, you know, whatever those things are, you may have to eliminate them. And then you got to plan out your day, and you got to stay focused and stay on task. So one of the things that I've done to encourage my youngest son, Daniel, is we've talked about the time management piece, you know, because when he was first starting college, he was a little worried that it was going to be overwhelming, a lot of work to do, you know, projects that he has. Some of them take hours. Some of them don't. Right. And it's like, well, okay. So when you get your assignments for the week, just frag out your time. So, you know, when you get home from school, you know, and you can build in some recreation in that, right? Because you got to build some downtime for yourself. So when you come home from school, man, give yourself the first 45 minutes to just kind of take a breather, get a snack, think about what, you know, just relax a little bit, kind of recharge your brain, recharge your mind, and then let's get to task, right? And then you know how long these things are going to take if you're honest with yourself about it. So break it up into chunks and go, okay, so I get home at 3. So I'm going to give myself until 4 to do whatever I need to do to chill out and relax. And then from, you know, 4 to 5:30, I'm going to work on this. And that's the time I've allotted for it. We have dinner around 5:30. So I'll give myself 5:30 to 6:30. 6:30 to 8 is going to be this project, or 6:30 to 9. And you just build it out that way. And then if you finish one early, you have options. You can either just get right on the other task so that you can wrap up the night earlier, or you can give yourself a little more free time. Yeah. So that's one way that you can approach it, to kind of start to plan out your day and stay focused.
I do that. I kind of do that a little bit with my weeks. Like if I spend a little bit of time on Sundays, which I like to do, I like to spend a little bit of time on Sunday evenings, kind of thinking about what the week holds. I got my schedule for work in front of me, and I kind of go, okay, well, I know we're taping a podcast on this day, and then I got this interview with this other guy on this day and whatnot, and I can kind of start to build a calendar for the week, and then I start to piece in the chores that I need to get done. Oh, I need to fix the sprinklers because my shithead dog chewed off 4 of my fucking sprinkler heads, and I got a lake in my backyard now. True story. Got a little PTSD talking about that one. But you know, and so you don't. I personally, I try to map it out a little bit, so I spread the peanut butter, and I don't try to tackle everything on Monday afternoon, because I know then I'll be super exhausted. I'll be less motivated to do it because I'll be staring at this giant chore list. Spread it out a little bit over a couple of days and go, okay, I'll fix the sprinklers on Monday. I take the trash out on Tuesday. I'll clean out the truck when I do that, you know, little things like that.
Yeah. You can build it all out, and you can do it, you know, a day at a time, a week at a time, whatever works best for you. You've got to kind of figure those things out for yourself. What else you got?
One of the things that on this subject is talking about, there was this stuff that I was reading. It was kind of linking procrastination and lazy people. And I don't know if there's a direct line of correlation between the two, but for the sake of argument, it said lazy people they tend to make excuses for things of why they aren't going to do something or why they can't do something. It's easier to lay on the couch, watch NASCAR and chew on Cheez-Its than it is to get up and go fix the sprinklers. True. Okay. I think there's enough minutes in the day where we could probably do both. What these people do that are chronic procrastinators, I think, is go back to the planning process. They're probably viewing the things that they need to get done or impediments to that. It's barriers to success for them. And something that we need to get into when we do our planning episode is seeing those barriers and finding a way through them. Marcus Aurelius was one of the Stoics that I like to read on. His book Meditations is pretty good, and in there he talks about the obstacle is the way. And it sounds a little weird, but when you think about it, there's an obstacle in front of you, and you have to find a way around it, and that energizes your problem solving mechanisms, and you find a way either through it, over it, or around it. And so, yeah, the obstacle becomes the way. And if you start to look at the barriers to success in a more positive light like that, then maybe you're a little more motivated or disciplined to attack those, because man, this is just something that's going to help me be a better problem solver, be a better decision maker, or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I don't know if you looked at my notes before we did this. I don't think you did, but it's a perfect segue into one of the other ones that I had, which was mindfulness and self-awareness.
Yeah.
This is a strategy and technique to build self-discipline and overcome procrastination. Because it's like you said, they're barriers to success. So this kind of goes back to when we talked about self-awareness before, and we talked about wanting to get to what's true, truer, and truest. Well, you and I just had the unique opportunity to work with a guy about a week ago who was procrastinating around something that he wants to get done, that's important for him to get done to move forward in his professional development. And when we started asking questions and we started drilling down, the true part of it was that he tends to procrastinate. Is it because he's lazy? Maybe. Not probably.
That might be a piece of it.
That might be a piece of it. Yeah. Is it the big piece? No. Well, what's true? Well, that the thing that he's trying to accomplish is a pretty big task. It's there's a lot of study required. It's a huge test. It's a difficult process. Yeah. But the truest piece of it was he's scared of fucking failing it.
That's right.
And
fear of failure, man.
Yeah, right. And and that goes right back to the self-awareness piece, and the courage over comfort stuff that we talk about. And that you got to get in the arena. You got to step outside of your comfort zone. Yeah, dude. And you know what? It's okay to be scared because it's scary sometimes. Yeah. Who the fuck wants to fail? Nobody wants to fail. But dude, you're never going to know until you do it. And even if you fail, you're going to learn, like we were talking about, you're going to learn something in that process. You're going to learn, how's the test put together? What kind of questions are they? Yeah. Do they focus on one particular portion of the information over others, right? And then you'll kind of know, how can I make myself be a better test taker the next time I see this thing? So try to get that self-awareness piece is very important. And the other thing too, in that particular situation, which I thought was extremely courageous by this individual, was the fact that he asked another guy to be an accountability partner for him.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to reach out and get accountability partners, right? Because when you make things public, when you demonstrate a public commitment to somebody or to a group of people and let them know what you're trying to do, they can help hold you accountable. They can help give you, until you kind of build some of that own self-discipline, that may be a little bit of an external motivator that helps you stay on that path.
Yeah. And, one thing that I would just say to the listeners is, one of the harder parts, I think, of all this stuff that we talk about is there may be an opportunity in there, or there may be a possibility, I should say. You may have to change your circle.
We've talked about this.
You may have to really look at who you hold on a pedestal around you. Maybe family members, maybe what you consider close friends, maybe work acquaintances, whatever it is. But you might come to a point, if there's something that you think that you need to do in your life and a direction that you need to go, you may reach a point where some of those relationships have to get cut off.
Yeah.
Because if they're not helping you, then they're hurting you.
Yeah,
there's really not a lot of in between. You know what I mean? And sometimes that sucks, man. And sometimes it stings a little bit. But I had this really good couple friend of ours, Katie and I, that retired from the military a few years before I did, and the wife in the couple, she was going places, man. She was doing all this kind of stuff, and the husband was not. He was perfectly fine sitting in his chair, drinking his Jack and Cokes and watching reruns of whatever. Eventually that caught up with him, and she flat out told him, she says, "Look, man, I'm going. You can either come with me or not." And he chose not. And I mean, we're talking high school sweethearts who had been together for, decades, and they split. And that's really sad when something like that happens. But you know what? I think she's in a better place now. Don't really want to get into his story too much, but I think that she probably made the right call because she's still got 30 years on this earth.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not going to sit there and let somebody drag me down when, dude, I'm going places, man. You can jump on board my train or not.
Yeah. Well, we talked about this previously. If you have distractions in your life, you may have to eliminate them. And those may not just be TV and social media. I mean, dude, we are bombarded with distractions. I mean, this device right here is just a distraction tool. The computer in front of me, a distraction tool. Netflix, YouTube TV, all those things are distractions. But people can also be distractions, and that's an important. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's an important, very important part to our point to make, right? And we talk about the 1 of 5, the circle of 5, right? The 5 people that you want to circle around you that are going to be supportive, that are going to be good influences on what you're trying to achieve. You may have to do some of that stuff.
Yeah.
But that goes back to self-awareness too, right? Like if you're not aware of those things or really what you're trying to do for yourself, then that might be difficult for you to recognize.
Well, I'll go back to my definition of discipline, and your circle of 5 wants to go out drinking and partying on a Friday night, but you've got to study for your certification or your exam, or you've got to write that term paper or whatever it is. What's more important to you? And like I texted somebody last night who was, this guy had texted me about watching old movies, and I just texted him, "Hey, does this help you reach your goal?" And he kind of hung his head, and he's like, "No." I was like, "Hey, man." So there's a story out there. I might have told this on the podcast or not. I don't know if I have, but the British rowing team years ago, they go to the Olympics, they lose, right? They take silver or bronze or whatever. So they come back, they reevaluate, they fire their coach and hire a new one. And that coach says, for the next 4 years, we're going to only ask one question. And that question is, does this make the boat go faster? And everything that they did, they asked that question. Do you want a cheeseburger? Does it make the boat go faster? No, don't have the fucking cheeseburger. Do you want to go hang out on a Friday night and go to the pub and drink some Guinness? Does it make the boat go faster? No, don't go have the Guinness. And that's really what it comes down to, man. And that's exactly the way that I presented it to him last night is, does sitting there watching movies help you get to your goal? And he said, no. I said, then why the fuck are you watching movies, man? These are hard decisions that you have to make, because it's cool to sit there and just watch a movie and munch on some popcorn, man. But if you're a mover and a shaker and you're going places, you got to make those hard decisions.
Yeah. Well, again, dude, maybe we're just getting really good at this, but that was my next thing, was delayed gratification. That's like, no kidding, one of the strategies and techniques, right? And that's just the ability to give up to the impulses that are going to give you relief because you're in a tough situation or trying to do a tough thing right now, that are going to detract you from what you're trying to accomplish. Yep. So instead of going, all right, all the boys are going to the bar, it's Friday night, I've been really diligent this week, I have a few more hours that I should study tonight, but I really want to go out and have fun. So what do? You go out and you have fun and you party and you stay up late and you drink too much. And then Saturday, when you were going to do a bunch of shit, none of it gets done because you're fucking hungover and you just want to sleep and you're tired and you don't have the brain space to do what you need to do, right? So you can see, whereas, how about I'm going to set a benchmark, and when I achieve that benchmark, I will give myself a Friday night.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Right? But not until I get to that benchmark. I got to get to the benchmark first. Then I'll give myself a Friday night. I'll have earned it at that point, right? Maybe you do it that way. But you got to figure out how to delay some of that gratification and set benchmarks for goals so that you can defer some of the fleeting impulses so that you can kind of stay on path. Try not to look for the quick dopamine fix from whatever it is for you, gaming, porn, Instagram, whatever's going to take your attention away to make you, dude, it's not about feeling good. It's about getting shit done. You're going to feel really good when you achieve your goal. You're going to feel better when you achieve your goal than you do by hanging on to whatever the distractions are that are giving you that temporary fix.
Yeah. And I think if you just go back about, 15, 20 minutes, what we were talking about some of the tips and tricks is map your week out. Your bros are going to call you on Friday night about 6 o'clock and be like, hey man, we're going to the bar, All right, that phone call's coming.
Yep.
And you really don't want to tell them no, because, hey man, let's face it, at the end of the week, who doesn't like to sit down and just have a drink? Or go out with your friends and just hang out and let your hair down a little bit and not think about whatever it is, work, school, whatever it is that you've been working on all week. So if you start this process on, say, Sunday, and you manage your time throughout the week with a couple of, like you said, benchmarks or to-do list or whatnot, and you get your homework done on Thursday night instead of letting it be pending on Friday night, well, now you've opened up opportunity in your schedule to go out and do some of that stuff and do the recharge and the rest and relaxation that we were just talking about and all that stuff in balance. So it kind of, I feel like this conversation talks a lot in circles.
It does.
It's like one of those damn diagrams with the arrows that just keeps going around in a loop like this, but it's really true.
But it's true.
It is.
And it goes back to what you said too, which is write shit down, because when let's say that phone call is coming Friday night, okay, and you're starting to struggle with it. It's 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon, and you're like, shit, I know I've got all this shit to do, but I really want to go out, and it's hard to say no. Well, if you have it written down, whether that's, your values, what the goal is, what the benchmark is, what you're trying to achieve for that week, if you have that stuff written down, grab that piece of paper and stare at it for 10 minutes.
Yeah. And
I guarantee you in that 10 minutes, you'll make the right decision. Right? You're going to spend enough time looking at it to go, man, this is really important to me. I need to do this. I need to stay on this path. It's hard to do, but I'm going to say no tonight. I'm going to say no tonight. I'm going to do it because I got to get this done. Right? Yeah. That's how you can do it.
Well, Katie will tell you stories of when I was going through the final stages of getting my books done, the cover designs and the final edits and building the online programs and all that stuff. That stuff is very time consuming. And I had imposed on myself some deadlines. I'd put stakes in the ground out there, my milestones that I wanted to hit. And dude, I pulled a lot of all-nighters. There were a couple of 20-hour days in there because I knew maybe, either I've got this coming up and I need to get this done, or there's this other thing that I really want to do on Saturday.
Yeah.
And I need to get this shit done so that I'm not fretting about it all day on Saturday when I go and do this other thing.
That's a great point, because a lot of times too, if you decide to go do something else, but you haven't hit whatever those milestones or benchmarks are for the week, then you go to that event, and in the back of your mind, all that's going on is, I should have been doing it, right? And then you don't even get to enjoy it
all weekend. Those suck.
The last one I had was be honest with yourself, and this goes back to stuff that we've already talked about to this point, but the bottom line with that is don't take on too much too fast. Like, be honest with yourself about what you can realistically achieve in the time that you have allotted. Kind of plan that out, set appropriate timetables and benchmarks, and then kind of move forward. Small chunks, small victories, get some wins, build some momentum, and all of that stuff will help over time.
That's kind of the goal setting 101 type of stuff. Start small and let it kind of build on its own.
And while we're sitting here going, don't go out on Friday night, also recognize that if you do, man, occasional stumbles don't invalidate, all the progress that you've made to that point, right? It may be a speed bump. Just sometimes we make, we make the wrong choice. It's okay.
Like we said, we're all going to fuck this up.
We're going to fuck it away every once in a while, right? It's okay. Just get back on task, get back on track, and keep moving forward.
One of the things I wanted to add to your list here, I don't know if you had this written down, but one of the ways that you can maybe kind of, psych yourself out or help get your mind around this is practice a little bit of positive self-talk. Instead of saying, oh, I'm lazy, I'm a procrastinator, which is a little negative when you're talking to yourself that way, you could say, hey man, I just took a 15-minute power nap. I really needed that rest. Now I'm recharged and I can go and do the things that I want to do, which is a little more positive. I'm a power napper, man. I can lay down, nap for like 5 or 10 minutes, and it's like I got a whole new day. Katie can't do that. when she goes down for a nap, she's going to go for 2 hours and then she's going to be groggy the rest of the day. So knowing yourself, knowing how you can operate, I don't mind getting up at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, because I know at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I can take a 5-minute power nap in my chair and boom, I'm ready to go till 10 or 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? Play with some of those things, because you may not know that stuff about yourself, but figuring that stuff out will help you, right? Yeah. That's part of that self-awareness piece.
Yep.
One other thing I was just going to say is, if you guys can build these habit patterns earlier in life, it's going to help you, because in the workplace, companies value employees who self-direct effectively. And they distinguish you from other people for leadership, for training programs, for promotion, right? So if you're somebody who can manage their time well, can be self-disciplined, doesn't get razzled by distractions or timelines, and can manage those types of things because you've built that process for yourself over time, you're going to do well in the workplace.
Yeah, there's some science out there behind, and a couple of the books. I'll list off some books here that I thought were pretty good resources. I'll list them off in a minute, but there was some science behind the idea of not only making your to-do list, but giving them a priority.
Yeah, I do.
And it's one thing to say, here's 5 things I need to get done today, but it's another thing to say, this is the first thing I need to get done today. Maybe it has the higher importance. Maybe it has the closer deadline, whatever that may be. Maybe the boss is really screaming at me over this or whatever the case is. But if you can learn to, it's almost like a little chart, you list out your 5 things and then you assign maybe a number system to them, or reorder them, or whatever it is, however your note-taking device is. I'm not really good at that. I'm much more of I try to do 3 things, and some guys, if anybody listens to Andy Frisella, you'll hear him talk about his power list. There's 3 things you need to get done. Every single day, you should have 3 things that you need to get done, right? And sometimes it's take out the trash, wash the car, walk the dog. Really simple, menial stuff, right? Other days it's complete the project, write the book, and make the phone call, or the marketing phone call or something like that. Much bigger stuff. And on each of those things, if you assign a priority to them, then that'll kind of give you the order and flow of how you need to do that.
Yeah, no, that's perfect, man. I mean, that's what I do. I make lists, and then I assign numbers, and I prioritize, and I go 1, 2, 3, 4,
Such
5,
a fucking
6.
geek, man. Jesus Christ!
But that's how I do it, because I
probably have like a whole rubric and shit built, don't you?
Yeah, no, it's not that bad. But yeah, that's exactly what I do, and that's how I stay on task, and that's how I know from 1 to 2. Because sometimes I'll have a list that has 15, 16 things on it, and I may not prioritize all of those things 1 to 16, but I'll prioritize the top 5. I'll keep I always have a running list going of things that I need to get done, just so I don't lose something. And sometimes it's simple things like, hey, I need to reach back out to somebody that we're trying to get on to interview on the podcast, or things like that. But then I'll prioritize them so that in the day that I have, I can kind of allot my energy towards accomplishing those 3 to 5 things.
And I kind of do some similar stuff. I don't know it as formal as probably you do, but I can look at my list and I can tell, that really needs to get done. That's definitely got a higher priority. But you know what? While I'm waiting on the show to download, I can go take out the trash and walk the dog.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So I'll pick up the little ones, the easy ones that are kind of easier to handle. The things that have a priority of 1 versus a priority of 5, or however you number it, your number system. I wanted to throw out a couple of resources here, books that I have found, that I've read, that I found that are on this topic specifically, were very helpful in me. And, guys, if you read enough of this shit, it all starts to sound the same. You start to see all the same themes. They're using different words, but it's all the same themes. And you might read a 300-page book and underline 1 sentence in the whole thing. But here's some books that I found that were really, really helpful, especially at the beginning of my journey, which is really only about 2.5, 3 years old or so. Atomic Habits by James Clear. Very, very good book. It's a little technical. It's a little more sciencey kind of thing. But his website has a ton of resources on it. If you just go to jamesclear.com, he's got a lot of good resources on there, and you can really deep dive into some of these things. He had a whole webpage on procrastination. I didn't read the whole thing, but it was worth noting that he had it. Now, if you want something that's a little more, laid back, a little bit more of a fun read, she's a little bit more humorous, a little bit more anecdotal, is Jen Sincero wrote a book called Badass Habits. And she's got a whole series of these badass books that she did. Badass you're a badass at making money, badass habits. You're a badass. Just talking about being a better person than you were yesterday. And she's got a pretty cool story, but she writes a little more fun. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen F. Covey.
Yeah, that's a great one.
That's a good one. Again, some of it is kind of dry.
Yeah.
But I listened to the Audible version of it and I found it a little entertaining. The narrator that I chose, he was a little bit more entertaining. He put some emphasis on the right syllables and made it fun. And then Mel Robbins has a book called The 5-Second Rule, which of all of these, I would probably read that one first. 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. And this one, when you're talking specifically about procrastination, it doesn't matter if the source of your procrastination is dread and fear, or just low self-esteem and low self-confidence, or you're just bored with it and you're not into it. It doesn't matter. If you go, all right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, jump. If you just do that, man, you'll be surprised at how effective that really is. And her whole book is centered around that concept of just count down from 5 and do the thing.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah. Well, and just going back to that, because I'm a big Covey fan, sometimes just getting yourself organized can make all the difference in the world in things like this.
No, you're right.
So, if you're bad at organizing your time or things like that, then I would encourage guys, just go old school, man. Go get yourself a day planner.
Yeah. There you go.
That breaks out your day. You've got a sheet of paper. Franklin Covey has day planners.
Yep.
I used to have one. I used to use it religiously back in the day. And, on one side, it breaks out the day and basically 2-hour blocks. And then you've got a task list on one side and a notes page on the other. And you can sit in there and you can, no kidding, just plan out your day hour by hour. I'm going to get up at 5:30. I'm going to be at the gym from 6 to 7:30. Yep. 30 minutes for shower, shave, and then off to work. And then at work, here's how I'm going to break out my time, or at school, here's how I'm going to break out my time and the gaps that I have and what I'm going to work on. And you can and if you start doing that over time, you'll find that you can get yourself really organized really fast and stay on task. So,
I'm a blank notebook kind of guy. I like a blank notebook. Give me a blank piece of paper. I'll write out my to-do list and all the notes and sub notes that go along with it, who I need to call. And what this does for me, though, is it serves sort of like a journal at the end of the year. I try to do one of these each year, and I can go back. And I mean, today, if you looked at my backpack out there, today I had my 2023 notebook because I'm preparing for some things, and I wanted to go back to some notes that I knew I had in there. And I was able to pull out things that I thought about 6 or 9 months ago and put them in this year's notebook. And now I can start to form my thoughts about the project that I'm working on. And so the bottom line is, try some different techniques. Some guys like sticky notes. Some guys like day planners. Google Calendar is a pretty good one. It's super user friendly. It's super easy. Yeah.
The bottom line, though, is if there's any takeaway that I want to share with the listeners, it's like self-discipline is tough to build at first, especially if you lack it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a tough process, man. There's a lot of personal accountability involved in it. There's a lot of routine that you have to build. But just stick with it. And it's okay. Like, you're going to fuck it up. You're going to fuck it up more than once. You're probably going to fuck it up a bunch at the beginning, right? But just try and stick with it and try to be as disciplined, for lack of a better term, as you can as you go through that process. Because over time, if you stick with it, what you'll start to build are routines and healthy habits. And when they start to become routine and habitual, they become a lot easier.
Yeah.
And then those routines and habits that you build in one area of your life become transferable to other areas in your life. And it feels like it's kind of like the snowball rolling down the hill analogy, right? It starts real small and it takes a little while to build steam, but eventually it starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
That's right.
And then it becomes a fucking juggernaut and it's just rolling down the hill.
Yeah.
And that's what you'll see happen if you stick with it.
Well, since we're flying nerds, let's use a flying analogy too, the 60-to-1 rule, right?
Yep.
So let's say that I'm going 0.9 Mach, which is 9 miles a minute. The 60-to-1 rule says something to this effect. If I told CAS to fly a heading of 360, which is due north, and he flies a heading of 001, which is just 1 degree of separation, going 0.9 Mach after 7 minutes of flight, just 7 minutes of flight, he's going to be 1 mile off course.
That's right.
So one little tiny degree that seems insignificant in the end, after just 7 minutes, you're a mile off course, and the FAA is starting to squawk at you and yell at you. And if there's weather, and
or you're over your target area, or you think you're over your target area, and nothing looks like it does on the target photos because you're a mile off course.
How about you apply that over flying transcontinental. You're going from LA to New York, and you fly 1 degree off. Dude, you're going to get over there and you're going to be in like fucking Florida or some shit.
Be in Baltimore.
So the point with that is, and I use that analogy a lot when I'm coaching people, is something that you think is very small, something that's just an insignificant in your eyes is an insignificant change. Waking up 5 minutes earlier, doing 2 minutes of meditation while your coffee's brewing, whatever it is. If you give that enough time, that shit is going to magnify.
Yep.
And before you know it, man, give it 3 months, give it a year. And see where you're at. You probably have taken that 2 minutes of listening to my coffee brew and trying to do some box breathing, and you found that, man, I really like sitting in a dark room for 20 minutes at the end of my day and just woo-saw. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So let these things grow. Give them time.
Yeah.
Plant the seed. Have you heard the story? I love the story. Have you heard the story of the Chinese bamboo tree?
No.
You plant the Chinese bamboo tree, right? And there's a guy that goes out there and waters this freaking seed for 5 years. He waters the seed for 5 years, and then all of a sudden one day it sprouts. After 5 years of being watered, it sprouts, and within just like a week, it grows to like 20 feet. All right. So guys, water that seed, give it a little bit of time and stick with it. Okay.
Yep.
This stuff will work if you just give it the effort, give it the time. And something that you think is very small, going for a walk around your neighborhood, in 6 months, you're going to be looking good by the pool.
Yeah. And just realize if you do have failures along the way, it's not a reflection of your personal worth or the work you put in. It's just an opportunity to learn. Yep. It's just an opportunity to learn what you need to recognize about yourself, or what you need, the pitfalls or the barriers that maybe you didn't see on the horizon that are things that you may fall into. It's just a way to learn, guys. So just keep pushing forward.
Yeah. That's awesome, dude.
What else you got?
I actually, before we wrap, I want to share a success story.
Okay.
We have a listener who I touched base with this person last night, and it's somebody that we've talked about on the podcast before. Early on in one of the episodes, I read a text message from this person, and he was having some problems with his dad and his brother. They weren't on board with what he was trying to do with his life. He's a young man. He's 18, 19 years old. He wanted to follow a particular profession. They did not agree. And the dad and the brother were being very negative towards him, kicking him out of the house, kind of negative. And I touched base with this young man last night, and he had been steadfast, and he had been sticking to his plan, and he had been working hard and applying some of these principles that we talk about. And he relayed to me last night that he's finishing his EMT course in just a couple of weeks. His firefighting school starts in September.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he has a golf date on Father's Day with his dad and his brother.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
man.
It gave me chills now. It just gave me chills talking about it, because guys, this shit works.
Yeah, it does.
All right. If you just stick with it and you focus on you and you do you, other guys are going to jump on board.
Yeah, it's good words, cool, man.
So I think that's a good one to end on.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome.
What else you got?
Be the change.
Be the one. Thanks for flying with the Be One Change One podcast. If you got something out of this show, then be the one and share it in your circles of influence.
You can be our wingman through our website at www.be1change1.com. That's be and the number one, change and the number one.com.
We invite you to be the one and join our fighter squadron on social media at Be1Change1 on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can follow us at Paul Roscoe White on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, as well as Roscoe's website, www.paulroscoewhite.com.
You can email us from the website, and please leave comments, share, and ask questions, or leave ideas of things you would like to discuss on future podcasts. Most importantly, be the one that helps us win the algorithm by leaving a review on whatever platform you're listening on.
Thanks for joining. Until next time, be the one.